We got some new secret audio that was released. Kevin McCarthy, Republican leader, talking about Trump in the wake of January 6th. And it's always interesting to hear what these guys are saying behind the scenes when, they know the public's not listening, because then they could be a little more truthful. So there's two pieces of this. I'll play the first one for you, and I'll show you the second one. Here's what he said about Trump on January 6th.
Yeah. Look, what the president did is atrocious and totally wrong.
What the president did is atrocious and totally wrong.
From the standpoint, we're 12 days away.
By the way, Trump is probably going to go after McCarthy over this. There's almost no doubt. Because he's impulsive. And he reacts without thinking. And I almost can assure you there'll be a Trump statement dropping on this.
I mean, the one point I'd make with Biden, if you have an impeachment and you're stuck sitting in the Senate, and he needs cabinet members, you've got Secretary of Defense, you've got a lot of things that you've got to have moving. And if you think from a perspective, you put everything else away, this country is very, very divided. I do think the impeachment divides the nation further and continues to divide even greater.
All right, so that's an interesting point. He's like, look, impeachment is just going to divide us further. The issue was not that impeachment divides us further, because he did many impeachable offenses. The argument against impeachment was like, he's going to be out in a couple weeks anyway, so what's the point? It's just a virtue signal. If you really want to take action and bring about justice and provide some accountability for what Trump was doing, you had the opportunity to pass a law that says he can never run for office again because he basically, egged on an insurrection or a riot or a coup. That speech he gave right before they went to go storm the Capitol, where he was like, we're going to go to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on those who are trying to do the right thing, and we won't be cheering on a lot of others, but we got to be strong and we got to fight. And then they go and they storm the Capitol. It was within the purview of Congress to pass a law saying, well, now he can't hold office ever again. So, and we covered that at the time. That was one of the legal remedies they could have used, but they didn't do it. And said, you go the path of impeachment, and then it's just a virtue signal, and it's like, well, congrats on virtue signaling. And being like, we don't like this is bad. McCarthy's against impeachment, but he's against impeachment for what I think is a silly reason about, this is divisive. Well, you could say that about anything. Like, if a president does something, the most egregiously wrong thing you can imagine, let's say they nuke an innocent country. You could still say, well, if you impeach them, it'll be divisive. It's like, okay, and it's still the right thing to do.
That's why I want to reach out to Biden. I wanted the president to meet with Biden, but that's not going to happen. I want to see about us meeting with Biden, sitting down, make a smooth transition, show that, and continue to keep those statements going. So hopefully, I know he's got to talk to Pelosi, but hopefully he calls me today, and see if we can start that process. Yeah. Look, with the president.
Okay, so that was that clip. Now, the other part, which I actually find more interesting, is a new New York Times audio shared with CNN shows McCarthy discussed the 25th Amendment on a call with GOP leadership days after the January 6th attack and said the process, quote, takes too long. So they floated that as an idea, and McCarthy didn't really reject it out of hand. McCarthy was like, well, the implication, the tone was like, well, maybe, but it takes too long. It's too long of a process because it bounces back to Congress. So it was... In other words, the takeaway here is the 25th Amendment was seriously discussed even among Republican leaders. Now, for those of you who don't know, maybe you didn't follow this stuff closely up until this point, but this is about the 25th Amendment here from Wikipedia. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment addresses the case of a president who is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the presidency, but cannot or does not execute the voluntary declaration contemplated by Section 3. It allows the vice president, together with a majority, this is the important part, a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, to issue a written declaration that the president is unable to discharge his duties. So in other words, this can be interpreted, and the founders left this vague on purpose, and they even stated this. They left it vague on purpose for basically other members of the executive branch and or Congress to look at how a president is acting. And if they so determine that you're incapable of carrying out your duties for whatever reason, because perhaps maybe you just tried to incite a coup, perhaps maybe because you mentally are gone, and you're in the deep stages of dementia or whatever, then they could basically remove a president on their own. And so that's what they were considering doing with Trump. They thought what he had done was so egregious and so preposterous that this was in the conversation. The 25th Amendment was in the conversation. And so to hear that Republican leaders were seriously discussing that. But honestly, it shouldn't even surprise us that much. Why? Because we all saw the internal text messages going around on January 6th, where everybody and their mother in the conservative movement was flipping out. You even had Sean Hannity like, he's got to stop this. Don Jr. said he's got to stop this or he's going to tank his entire legacy. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, the president needs to speak out, needs to do it now. Everybody was like, this has gone too far. This is not the answer. Violence is not the way to go. And then, of course, some of them within 24 hours were changing their tone or their tune and saying the opposite. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene went from, he's got to call this off, to, actually, you know what? I sort of think it's Antifa thugs who are doing it, not MAGA people. Okay, Marjorie. And then she later went on to call for martial law. But you can see that at the time, they were having the more human reaction of like, this is crazy. He clearly doesn't believe in democracy. He sort of wanted to overthrow the election. He just came up a little bit short because Mike Pence had a few shreds of integrity and dignity left. But the 25th Amendment was discussed. It was openly discussed. And that is stunning. That's some stunning stuff. So anyway, there you have it. Now there's going to be probably a bigger war between Trump and McCarthy, and we'll have to wait and see that.